Okay, it looks like we have a little bit of a quorum, and it's 1 minute after noon. And I know all of your time is super valuable these days as you try to balance your time and try to fill the open roles that I know most of you have. With that, thank you for joining us today. My name is Kristin Tschantz. I am the VP of Growth Marketing here at Hireology. What that means is I get to spend every day thinking about this problem. How do we help people like you build their best teams? It's what drives me, what keeps me up at night and wakes me up in the morning. And I'm excited to talk to you today about how we can give you some advice about how to hire housekeepers and basically how to connect with and hire talent for those hardest to fill roles. So my hope today is that we'll talk a little bit about some data and some insights we have from our hundreds of customers in your market and thousands of customers in various other retail and frontline type work, and give you some best practices that you can start to put into play even today. So with that, let's get started. I will take questions at the end, so feel free to Slack them or chat them in. I'll take a look at them and do my best to answer them. And we'll be providing this deck and the recording afterwards as well, so you can share with your team. So with that, let me get started. There we go. So hiring landscape. Before we dive in, we're going to talk about what's going on in the market. It's really interesting. I was just doing a similar speaking engagement for the assisted living market this week, and I was shocked to see how every time I turned on the TV to watch the news, there was a story about jobs. There's a story about what's going on in the Ohio job market, what people are facing with gig economy, et cetera. So today I want to break that down and help you really understand what's going on and why does it feel so challenging, and how we can basically help you understand it to go tackle the problems and make some real changes. So first, let's just look at the recent BLS report. Last week, we announced that the US added 428,000 jobs, and you'll see many Americans are getting back to work at the same time. Unemployment is down, we're at 3.6%, and workforce participation is up. And if you look at it, we're seeing some recovery compared to where we were 6 months ago or last summer. So we're really starting to bounce back in this kind of post-pandemic, moving towards endemic type world. However, you guys are saying, hey, that sounds great for everyone else. Hotels and hospitality is an outlier. You are still really feeling the stress of 2021 hiring crisis. You're still struggling to not only attract applicants, but also keep them interested and engaged throughout the hiring process. And it's impacting your ability to book your hotel to capacity and ultimately drive to that bottom line. Overall, this industry is still short 1.5 million jobs from February of 2020. That's a lot of people. And if you look at the job market today, with the average job market saying, hey, there's 2 jobs to every able-bodied, interested in working human being in the United States, and you're short 1.5 million, that leaves a really big gap for this industry. And so we'll dig into that a little bit more. We actually ran the numbers for hospitality job openings, including housekeepers, front desk folks, bellhops, concierge, and lodging managers using our partner and labor database, EMSI, and found that in the last 3 months, alone, some states have seen more than 100% increase in these types of openings. Knowing I'm sitting here in Chicago and we finally got above 50 degrees here for the spring, and I can tell you all the hotels are starting to book up, and I know that means that people are getting back to seasonal staffing, and that's what we're seeing in the metrics, and that's what you're competing against. Competition for this type of work is massive, and so that's what's going to be really hard. Not only are you competing with the other hotels in your market, you're adding in Amazon, you're looking at gig economy, so people can do things like DoorDash. They're looking for flexibility. You're really running into some competitive markets. Just looking at this alone, with double-digit growth month over month, you're going to have some interesting things to compete against. Here's the same data in map form. Worth noting that many of the states are the deepest blue here are the states that tend to attract tourists and travelers in the summer months. So we know what's going on in the Northeast, preparing for that flock of summer tourism. Illinois, Michigan Avenue is really busy today. Things like that. As we approach better weather, that is going to, and declines in COVID cases, you're just going to have that much more demand for capacity and need to be staffed up against it. And those who have already started that seasonal hiring and are already starting to prepare their career site, their recruitment marketing efforts, et cetera, are going to get ahead of it and get more than their fair share of the applicants in their market. But you need to start now and make sure that you're prepared for it. So what's causing this massive demand for workers? Why are you feeling the pain more so than ever before? And why is there this widespread struggle when it comes to filling roles beyond just hospitality? Let's break it down. One of the reasons is new and involving expectations for work. There's lots of headlines out there. People don't want to work. People are leaving the workforce. I would argue it's actually just that their expectations of work have changed, or this great reassessment that we're seeing. During the pandemic, people have had the time to reevaluate their priorities of work and life. And it turns out people don't want to be tied to their employers for 9 hours a day with little flexibility. If I had time to pick up my kids, do what I needed to do during COVID, I want that balance of work and life that much more. They want to have that flexibility and take care of, parents if they need to. Combine that with the rise of gig economy. So think Uber, Instacart, and other forms of self-employment like freelance creative work or bartending. People can make their own hours, run their own businesses, and be completely in control of their lives. This way of life is attractive to people and it is possible. So people aren't going to willingly join a business's payroll for lower pay and less flexibility than they can get working for themselves. So there needs to be a greater effort on behalf of employers to compete with this. I'm actually going to give you a sneak peek. We're running a survey right now to understand applicant sentiment. We do it every year. It's our annual survey. And our early data is showing that more than half of people are willing to sacrifice pay for better flexibility. So think about that. That's not people opting out to work. That is people changing their priorities or their perspective and reevaluating what they're going to do and how much time they want to spend working versus how much time they want to spend living. And that's the kind of job environment you all are up against. Other contributing factors. This other factor that is massively contributing to this shortage in talent is lack of childcare. If you're a parent or an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or have friends with kids, you are seeing this firsthand. The pandemic really impacted working parents, especially working mothers who simply found it more financially beneficial to stay home with the kids rather than work. There was so much that changed in school environments, it just made it easier. This has been exacerbated by COVID-related school closures. Many working moms had no other choice. But even if schools and daycares reopen, it is proving to be difficult for working parents to get back to work for many of the reasons I listed earlier. Lack of flexibility, rigid scheduling, and the cost of childcare outweighing pay. Additionally, if you got to spend more time with your family, that may be a priority like it wasn't before. That may have jumped the line. And so that flexibility enables you to do that. That's why that flexibility is going to get prioritized over pay. To make matters worse, I know I sound super doom or gloom. While hotels and hospitality businesses are feeling the brunt of the talent shortage across all industries are looking to hire, especially those that are also hit hard at the onset of the pandemic, like retail. So you're not just competing with each other, you're competing with other businesses that are looking for the exact same type of talent you are. In fact, our recent study found that nearly half of active job seekers in 2021 applied to more than 10 jobs in your search. That means you're competing with 10 other companies for every one job seeker. I'm going to stay here for a little bit because I spent some time talking to assisted living facilities yesterday, which actually you are probably competing with as well, looking for people who want to provide a level of service, a level of care, and take care of people at a certain point in their life. 10 other companies, their eyes really open up to this, because what that means is that when you're talking and interviewing with someone, they have 9 other interviews happening in the next 10 days. They're spending time looking at other jobs. And so how are you going to stand out against those other 10? And it's no longer, hey, we're a better hotel. We have this kind of, this kind of uniform program. Here are the kind of amenities that you get. You're competing with other businesses. And so you have to really understand what kind of people do you want and what kind of people are looking for that, because the options are on their side. And it's really what's driving this job market is that the applicant or the candidate has all the control. And they get hired fast. So, to add insult to injury, not only are they applying to 10 or more jobs, they're also getting hired really quickly once they begin to throw their name in the ring. 43% of our respondents got hired within 2 weeks. That means if someone applied today, within two Wednesdays from now, I'm getting my offer letter, my paperwork, and signing up for my first day on the job so that I can start my training. 2 weeks. That 2 weeks, if you have a good candidate, you really need to make sure you're positioning yourself to be able to move fast. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on those top job seekers. How many are you waiting to, hey, I wasn't able to schedule this first phone screen with someone for another 10 days. They're probably at the final interview stage by that point. And so really looking at this time to hire, especially as people who, hey, I've already taken the time, I've applied to 10 other jobs. These 9 other companies are going to make sure I get an offer within 2 weeks. That's the kind of market that you're up against there as well. And finally, even if we do attract the right candidates and get them interested in your roles, they don't stick around for long enough if your hiring process is clunky, slow, and inconvenient. We also surveyed our customer base and found that 84% of businesses have had a candidate ghost during the hiring process in the last 6 months. I wish I could see all your faces. Raise your hand in your office or at home if you've experienced this, but as a hospitality business, I guarantee you have had this happen and it doesn't feel good. Having someone not show up to an interview, not show up to a phone screen, not show up on the first day, which is happening a lot, is really, really painful because you've taken the time to look at their resume, to make sure that they're a good fit, really understand it, and you get excited about filling that position. And so candidates these days are really hard to keep interested, and this is going to happen more and more. So you really need to have a tight hiring process and a tight thing here to help sure that you can mitigate your time loss and make sure that you prevent ghosting, and you make sure you get the opportunity to convince the candidate and talk to the candidate about why they should come work for you. Now, I spent some painting a bleak picture here, and I can tell you, people ask us all the time at Hireology, hey, is this job market going to end soon? Is this just a continued residual effect of COVID and we should be done with this? Our prediction is we've got another 18 to 24 months of this job market. Yeah, there's post-COVID things that are happening, we're bouncing back, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it's hard to solve for the fact there's just not enough workers to fill jobs. Again, I'll say the stat of there's almost 2 jobs for every able-bodied person. And so what you need to do is not think about, hey, I can't go create more workers. How can I do better at this and create a better hiring process and recruitment marketing strategy to make this work? And so here's what we're going to talk about today. How do you retail your jobs like products? How do you make sure if a job, if your product is a job and you're selling it, how do you retail it? How do you make sure that you're marketing it the right way? Embrace employee referrals more than ever before, especially because we all had didn't have the opportunity to be with people. People want to be with people they like, and they want to be part of a good team. And so really embrace this as a channel to drive candidate flow and make sure you staff up your property. Incorporate SEO best practices. How can you make the most of what marketing has been doing forever? I'm sure your marketing firms for your properties are doing. How do you make sure you show up in search and you're at the top of everybody's mind? Use social media strategically. We're all on our phones more than ever before. I looked at my screen time and it's gone up double since COVID is over. And so using social media to really reach those candidates is super important. And then finally, make it easy. You're asking for someone's time in an interview process and you're asking them for them to pick you. You need to make that a selling experience and a really quality experience. So let's talk about how you can retail your roles like products. How do you take the jobs that you're offering in your market that you are desperate to fill, such as a housekeeper, and retail them like products? So let's take a look at what a product is. It's an item of service built to meet a specific want or need, and then retailed and marketed as a solution to said want or need. It is the thing that someone wants. And the best products are differentiated from competitors in some way and are marketed effectively with the right message on the right channel. I used this analogy yesterday and it really clicked for me. We all have an airline that we love to fly. At the end of the day, most of them are just a Boeing plane. It's just something that goes up in the air that gets you from place A to place B. But there is something about the product that is offered from whatever airline you may choose that differentiates it. And it's really about what is the service that is built to meet my need and my want. How is it differentiated from competitors? Do I have to pay for bags? Do I have to do different things? And is it marketed to the right audience? Hey, I'm a business traveler who likes A-list status and wants to be able to jump the line. That gets marketed to me differently than someone who wants to be able to take their family on places and make that an easy process. Those are two different audiences, and that's where the product really comes in. So let's break that down. I'm going to do it in terms that you will understand that much more. A hotel, it's a place to stay. It is a room. It's a place to put my head when I'm traveling for business. It's a place to put my head when I'm trying to experience a new city. How do you differentiate it? Think about everything that you're doing, everything from the amenities you get, such as free breakfast in the morning, a better affordable rate, the view you may have of the city, the higher quality of service, what your front desk people experience is like, what do your bell service say? What kind of housekeeping do you provide during kind of post-pandemic? Is it every day? Is it twice a week? What does that look like? Is there a gym on site? Is there a pool? What kind of scent are you pumping through? All of the things that I know you have meetings about quite often to deliver this experience are differentiating factors that you try to set yourself out a part of for basically just being a place to stay. And so the way that you do that is there are all these promotion channels, television ads, what kind of loyalty programs are you built around it, digital ads, SEO, social media, billboards, physical signage, all of the things that you go into of saying, hey, here's the experience that we're going to deliver. That is the product we deliver. Here's how we're going to market it and set it aside. And this is what it's going to look like. How do you make yourself stand out? So now let's take this and make it look, compare it to a job. A job is a product. What you are selling, you are asking someone to come spend, 20 to 40 to 60 hours a week working for you. What they're looking for is a level of steadiness and income that they can look for, health insurance, benefits, day-to-day fulfillment. If the place I spend the most of my time is work, does it fulfill my needs? Does it provide some flexibility? Does it make me happy? Am I with the people that I want to work with? So how do you compete? Competitive pay, that's really hard to do with inflation the way that it is, gas prices, et cetera. Pay is a tax we all pay, and we can't make up for other things. So how do you compete on pay? You're looking at better insurance, career paths, what's going on with that? What kind of future can I look to have? What kind of benefits do I have? Added flexibility. Hey, I want to work in hotel, but I can't work weekends. Is there an opportunity for you to look at that and look at that work? And then supportive working culture. What kind of on-the-job training do I get? Do I like the people that I work with? Is the manager that you're going to work under for housekeeping known as the best manager in the property, et cetera? What is the working culture that they get to be a part of that will fulfill their day looking at the need? And then how do you promote it? If it is a job, is a product, how do you retail it? What job boards are you putting it on? What kind of social media? What word of mouth? How are you leveraging the people who have already committed to working for you to go find more people that they want to work with? How do you enable that and make that happen? And then how do you make sure that if you were running a proper career site, doing things on job boards, really driving great content, that you're part of their search, they're part of their job search as they're looking to apply to those 10 jobs that I mentioned before. So let's define the product. That's the first step. If you were to ask any marketer who's worked at any kind of product, whether it be consumer packaged goods, selling services, hospitality, travel, what we do here at Hireology, selling software, it's really thinking about, hey, let's define the product. Let's make sure we all are aligned. So let's start with the most basic needs. People need to get paid, and the pay needs to be in line with the work they're doing as well as the experience they have. And it needs to be consistent with product market standards. So there's great tools out there for you to see, hey, are we consistent with everyone? And is this going to be a margin appropriate level of pay? So that's what you need to define. It's really that baseline. Define the work and offer wages that are consistent with supporting that work. Then you might want to consider what your employees are getting out of the work personally. Is it fulfilling? Is it something that will take pride in or feel a sense of accomplishment? How do you honor that? Hey, I know I'm going to get the same pay as at this hotel A as I am hotel B, but hotel B is going to recognize me. They're going to give me this kind of benefits program. They're going to define those things. Is it providing fulfillment? Oh, and by the way, there is a defined career path where in 3 years from now, this is what that looks like. And so this is where you can start to differentiate yourself. Flexibility, I mentioned hours before. There is no reason why you have to use the same kind of hourly scheduling that you did before. Play around with it. Look at what works. See if you can make it work. Hey, I found someone who's really, really good, but due to childcare can only do 20 hours a week, and it can only be Monday to Wednesday. Now, some of you may say like, hey, that's just not someone for us due to capacity. Those days don't require us to have that level of staffing. Okay, look at it. Where can you find some opportunity? Where can you work with that person to build a better schedule that make it works for them? Traditional benefits packages. I think too often we don't overlook this, and there's opportunity to educate candidates in this part of the process. Is here's your total compensation. Here are the benefits that we're going to offer to you. Is it healthcare? Are you offering healthcare to part-time workers? Is there a better program that they can buy into? What does that look like? And then what are the other things you can give to support those situations? Additionally, look at career path options. What kind of career path can you give? Too often, I think hospitality is actually one of my favorite industries to watch. Of people start at entry level. Hey, I started as a housekeeper, or I started in this role in the hotel, and through the various programs provided through internships, on the job training, job shadowing, etc. This person is now the food and beverage manager for this property, or they've been able to move through the hotel network to become a GM somewhere. Those are the things that you should really be playing up, because if that's a part of a job perk that you can't get in other careers and in other places. And culture and working conditions. What does it look like? Hey, do I have a uniform allowance? And that's part of those role specific perks. But what does it look like? Is it a clean place to be? Is it in a good part of town? Do I like the people that I'm working with? Do I have pictures of the staff that they could potentially work with? Happy faces, etc. Maybe you look at that. And then finally, additional role specific perks, uniforms, transportation reimbursement. I know I mentioned I was with some senior living facilities yesterday. They're providing Uber discounts to get people to facilities to make it easier for them to get transportation. I know a lot of properties offer stay perks, or hey, a certain number of nights at a sister property free. Advertise that, make that part of the job. It's not just, hey, you're going to work these hours, get this pay, and we require you to work 40 hours a week. There's so much more that goes into the product that is the job. Make sure you're documenting and defining that so that you understand what your differentiators are. And then finally, you have to take that product and package it. You have to package it and promote it. So this is where the job description comes in. I mentioned that as a really important thing earlier, but job descriptions are often your first and only opportunity to catch the eye of a job seeker. Think of it like packaging of the new product on the shelf on the store. How many times have people talked about, hey, here's the new Coke can or the new Diet Coke can? Job description is no different than that. It needs to stand out to sell job seekers instantly. What is in it for me to go look at this job and make it one of the 10 that I apply to? Typically, what we recommend to our customers is to follow a structured formula. It helps you make sure that you're documenting everything and you're putting your best foot forward. Now, don't start with responsibilities and duties. I think we all often are like, hey, they want to know exactly what the day-to-day looks like. Think about this as an advertisement. Sell them on it. Start with a quick, short summary of the job for SEO purposes. That'll make sure that you're searched at the top of Google. And then dive right into the benefits, or what's in it for the customer. I call it the WIFM, what's in it for me. And of course, that's where you highlight everything we discussed above: your flexibility, culture, benefits, on-the-job perks, all of those things. Make sure you're doing it. So job title, then job summary, then benefits, responsibilities and requirements, what makes you unique as a company. And then finally, if you have opportunity, make sure you're communicating their efforts that promote diversity. How are you making sure you have an EEO statement on there? Follow this formula. And finally, once you have that advertisement or that packaging of the product down, you can distribute it across all the channels where you target audience is spending time. Your career site, job boards, both paid and organic. There's so many options out there for you to distribute this ad and get it in front of as many people as possible. Google, social media, and finally, I keep talking about referral programs, but they're an untapped resource, especially in this industry of you bringing people back into hospitality, travel, and leisure. Get people to bring their old coworkers, their former friends back into the industry, and create a really solid referral program. I'll be touching on best practices for and advice for all of these channels throughout the rest of this webinar, but make sure, hey, am I doing all 5 of these things? Do I have a good job advertising? If you do nothing else but go back to your computer or have a meeting with your team to say, hey, we need to document what this product is that we're selling as a job, and do we have the right job descriptions? You'll already be ahead of your market just by doing that alone. So we're going to talk about employee referrals. I know I keep referencing it. Now I want to dig in a little bit deeper about what you can do to actually make the most of it. This industry needs it and can benefit from it the most because you were hit the hardest. You saw so many people get impacted by closures, by the inability to travel, by the inability to see people and be around. And now that it's reopening, you can have your employees make sure that you're fully staffed and that you can bring people back in the right way. So what is interesting to see is that 1 in every 8 new hires is a referral. So those, word of mouth has become so successful that we're seeing this. That means more than 10% of all hires come from referrals. That is 4 times higher than the next most effective source of hires, which is Indeed. So a lot of us use job boards. I'm never going to tell you not to use them. But hey, if I knew as a marketer that this one channel was the channel that was going to be that much more effective, aka 4 times more effective than the next, I would double down on it and make sure it works. What's really important for this space, though, is that people trust their peers. And so use the channel where trust is most apparent, which is going to be in your referral network. And let's really make sure we optimize it. So let's talk about some best practices. How do you create it? Step 1 is to make sure your internal teams are aware of the program. I know that sounds crazy, but you need to market it much like you would your hotel through email, SMS, and physical signage campaigns. If you have a weekly stand up with your employees or a monthly all hands, are you saying, hey, did you all know we have an employee referral? Or hey, did you know that Kristin over here just got a big check because all of her referrals stayed past 90 days and she's made this her own side gig? Make sure you're communicating how to participate, the reward amount, celebrate those who are getting the rewards, and then open the roles you're looking for. Hey, we just opened 2 more housekeeping roles. Who wants to be the first to get me a referral? Talk about it. What gets talked about gets done. Make sure that you're doing that. It's also important to set the right bonus. This is a balancing act and is not a perfect science, but it's something you should constantly be looking at. You want to pay enough to motivate people to try, but don't go overboard, especially in the hotel space for seasonal roles. Look at what that role is going to bring you, what's going to incentivize people to drive it, and how do you back out of it. We typically recommend around $100 for high volume seasonal roles. Hey, for every person you refer, here's what you see. It's enough to get people excited, but it isn't going to break the bank for you. We've also seen customers gamifying their programs to tap into people's competitive side. So create leaderboards internally to spark that competition. Hey, did you know Kristin has 10 referrals and Michelle has 8? Hey, Michelle, that's going to drive some competition for there and make sure that everyone gets, understands who's competing for that higher bonus payout. And then finally, be sure you're always following through on your promises in terms of payout amount and timing. Your team will lose trust in you really fast and won't participate if you don't pay when you say you're going to. So this is where the tracking and the management of this is super important. Too often I talk to people who are running it. Hey, yeah, people just email it to me. And if I remember, we pay them out. Retaining your people as important as driving new hires. And so making sure you have a system that supports both new and current will be really important to make this work. And here's some examples of what this looks like in practice. You'll see the vendors sign on the left. You'll see a QR code included, making it really easy for folks to quickly scan on their phones and submit referrals while on the go. That way that they don't have to write down a URL or instructions and do it later when they have the time to get to a computer. Next, you'll see an email and text campaign example, but both make it really easy to click directly from the email or text in order to submit on the spot. Depending on the type of work of staff your staff is doing, both of these can be super effective. Maybe bartenders or other housekeeping staff texting might be easier, but anyone on your staff who's spending more than time in email, it might be effective to reach them that way. The key is experimenting with your different communication channels and finding what works best for your team. Most importantly, being able to communicate with people on mobile will help set you apart, and making sure that this is super easy for your staff, especially in the hospitality space, because they're constantly on the go, is what you should be enabling and empowering people and make it work. So now that we've talked about employee referrals, we're going to revisit job descriptions we mentioned above. You'll want to be sure you're incorporating SEO best practices when crafting these. If it's your ad is going to be what helps you get searched. Experts estimate that 70% of all job seekers today start their search on Google. 70%, so more than 2 out of 3. So it's really important to show up on these searches. Plus, Google has capitalized on this by creating its own job board, which essentially just relies on its algorithm to find jobs that fit certain search criteria. You'll see the example of this on the right. So how do you boost your search ranking? By following typical SEO best practices with your pay descriptions. So first, keep your titles between 1 to 3 words and don't include any additional keywords in the title. Using titles like housekeeper, competitive pay may seem like it attracts more people, but really Google sees this as spam. Use bullet points and subheads to break up the text. Google tends to favor readability over length of copy. Keep the word count between 300 to 800 words, the ideal range for Google. And finally, use the right keywords, which is something we'll dig in further in the next few slides. Said differently, a best practice I always have is how many scrolls on your phone does it take for you to go through your job description? If it's taken more than 2 swipes, you probably have too much copy, it's not bulleted appropriately, and it's not going to fit what Google's looking for. Make sure that you're helping there, and good SEO will help you make sure that you show up when people in your market are looking. Most major job boards also rely on SEO to prioritize the listings there as well. So many of the same best practices we just covered apply here too. Additionally, some specific job board tips include avoiding writing in all caps or using excessive exclamation points. You don't want to scream at the applicant. Again, many of these algorithms see this as spam. It's also important not to post duplicate jobs because most of these sites will ding you for that. Hey, I just saw that you posted housekeeper 1, housekeeper Chicago, housekeeper Skokie, housekeeper Evanston. That's kind of all the same thing, and they could potentially see that as spam. You also want to be sure to include the location and make sure you use the word hotel so that folks are assuming your roles for school, a hospital, senior living facility, like I've mentioned before. And then finally, when it comes to job boards, consider sponsoring your posts for greater reach. Of course, this can get costly, but if you carefully track the ROI like a good marketer does, you'll be able to see the spend and adjust over time. It's possible to drive real results. And those results are, hey, am I getting hires from these sponsored job boards? Are people coming through that I am putting on my payroll? That will be the most important factor of if you're driving ROI. And when it comes to the keywords, I might have skipped a slide, so apologies here. There we go. So I mentioned some keywords and making it work on job boards. When it comes to those keywords I mentioned, here's some that are great for you to pay attention to in your job descriptions. Flexible schedule, competitive pay, daily pay, healthcare benefits eligibility, limited or no nights and weekends. I know that's really hard for a lot of people, but even saying limited, hey, we'll work with you works. Transportation reimbursement or parking, travel discounts. Those kinds of things will help you really get searched. And you need to make sure that you're paying attention to that because this will be part of the job advertising. Those are the things we talked about before when you're documenting the product. What is competitive about your product? Make sure that those keywords that highlight that are in your job description. So we've talked already about, hey, how do I use my employees to drive people to apply to my jobs and get more housekeepers on staff? We've talked about how to use SEO strategy to do it. So organic search. How do I make the most of job descriptions and paid job boards? Now we're going to talk about social media. You'll want to use your social media channels to drive to your advantage. People spend a lot of time. I spend an embarrassing amount of time on social media, and it can be a really effective way to target audiences with employment branding messages. People want to see what it's like to work for you, and they want to see what's going on. Use social media to expand on that. Post your open job roles organically. Let's look at that. So there's a few ways you can do this. Posting your open roles and using social to showcase them is really just table stakes. If you're not doing it already, that's the first thing I would go tell your marketing team, your recruitment manager to do. You have to do that. You have to have a basic presence on social media because the people are going to look at your profiles to get a sense of what it's like working for you. I know so many properties that do Christmas parties, family day, summer events, on the job training, job shadow week, etc. Highlight that in your social media. Make sure people see that. And then in some capacities, invest in sponsoring some of those posts. Make sure that it reaches out to people. Make sure it's happening there. Incorporate social media into your referral program. Hey, how do you highlight that? How do you make sure that people know that? Make sure you're talking about what it's like to work at your property and why someone should pick you, and use the channel that you're probably already using to get guests to want to stay with you, to get people to kind of want to work for you. It is a job, and jobs are like products that must be retailed. And the best retailing tool a lot of us have today is social media. First, let's talk about employer branding via social media so we can dig in here. Many leading hotels use social, as I mentioned, to showcase individual team members and highlight their career growth and testimonials. Like you'll see with the Hilton here on the left. You can also use it as an extension of your career site and discuss different benefits and perks for you. For example, on the right, you'll see a Marriott property discussing the core values of the company as a way to entice workers who might be prioritizing culture and working conditions. Hey, if you have a career with Marriott International, this means you have opportunity to grow, develop meaningful and supportive relationships with your colleagues. Join a team here, shared values, where shared values are rooted in respect. Apply at this place. That looks like a group of individuals that I want to spend time with, working weekends, working long hours, because they look like they're having fun and have mutual respect and they're having a good time. Those are the things you should pay attention to. Next, social can really be a great way to target specific audiences. Think about what people share on social media: interests, work history, education, location. You can target sponsor posts based on any of these demographics, making it easy to reach really specific audiences. You'll see on the right, Marriott posted specifically about housekeeping jobs and can target their specific post to audiences they believe might be interested in this type of work. What kind of point are they in their career? What kind of search behavior have they had? You can start to do things like that. There's an opportunity for you to target based on those things and based on those demographics. Social media can also be an extension of your referral program. You can incentivize your existing employees to also share your open roles on social media as a way to extend your reach beyond what you're posting as a brand. The beauty of social media is how fast information can spread, especially from personal accounts. The average Facebook user is connected to 338 people. 338, that's a big number. And each of those people are connected to another 338. It's quite the web, and so on, meaning your reach really is exponential. In total, nearly 70% of US adults use social media, and that number is even higher among women. Additionally, most social media algorithms prioritize content from people over brands. So just by the nature of the algorithm, your jobs will reach more people if your employees start to share them. And finally, in general, people tend to have greater trust in their peers rather than their brands on social medias. To motivate people to participate, you might want to offer prizes that people can enter to win for each post they share. Or maybe you offer big referral bonuses for candidates who come through social media posts. On the right, you'll see actually an example from Hireology. This is from our team. So we are hiring a digital marketing strategist. And as Natalie says, good marketers know good marketers. Good housekeepers know other good housekeepers. You can even just copy this here. You'll see that we simply shared one of our open roles and wrote what Natalie is looking for in that role. And it's already been shared by so many people. And you can see how many connections this person who took a screen grab already has. It is a great thing to do. If nearly 70% of adults use Facebook, it is a great channel to enable for your team between Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Make sure that people are sharing this. You don't have to try every idea that we have, but just try one thing and see what you get and measure it and understand, hey, how many applicants did I get today? And finally, we've talked a little bit about how to leverage social, how to leverage all these different channels. I just want to talk now about how to make it easy. It's the most important part of all of this. Your jobs are so hard. I want to always go out there and just say, I understand, especially in the hospitality industry, what you were up against and what you're coming back from. And so how do we make it easier on you and make it easier on the candidate? And that's what we're going to talk about here. What does it look like? Overall, thinking about mirroring the experience to any other experience you might have been doing something online. For example, say you're ordering food. It's really easy to do this these days via app on your phone. Your driver texts you with updates. It's simple and fast. Applying for a job should be that easy. The application should be short, no more than 5 fields, Never ask anyone to enter information that already is on their resume. Task for you today, you can do it while I'm still talking, is take out your phone and look at your job applications online. How long are they? Does it feel like I'm applying to college? Or does it feel like I'm, looking for a new opportunity? The application should also be mobile friendly. So if you're looking on your phone, is it easy to do that? You avoid drop-down options that are tough to navigate on your phone, that you optimize this form for smaller screens. And speaking of resumes, keep these as optional. Do we really need to look at it, or can someone give us that information, and can that be part of the phone screening process? I challenge you to think differently about this given the market. I mentioned this before, but use a finger swipe rule. How long does it take me to go through everything? Next, you need to talk about making the entire interviewing process easier. This means texting to schedule interviews or collect references. Asking someone to constantly have to log into their email and pay attention to that means that you're making the process longer and it's taking more time. Find ways to do that, and find tools that help you do that easier too. Make this easier on yourself. Cluttered inboxes to find messages to get back to candidates and for candidates to get back to you are really hard. And then along those lines, conduct virtual interviews when possible. Hey, I know I might be with 3.6% unemployment, the people that you're trying to get to come work for you aren't just sitting around and have all this free time. They've got other things going on. So make sure that the first step in the interview process should really be on their time. If COVID has taught us anything, we can absolutely complete a lot of things virtually. And there's ways to do that through great systems. And then finally, in general, make sure the hiring process is streamlined and fast. For example, mandate fast response times on your team so your candidates aren't left waiting for days or weeks to hear next steps. Or maybe review your hiring process steps and cut out bottlenecks that are making the process too slow or inconvenient for the candidate. An example I have is a customer of Hireology holds their entire recruiting group to a time to review resumes. It has to be done within 24 hours, if not shorter. And they have to make sure that their first interviews are scheduled. And they have seen a real bottom line impact to that because they're getting staffed faster. They're able to increase their capacity and do what they need to do. Here's an example of a great housekeeper application from one of our customers. You'll see that the applicant has only asked 4 required fields, as is the resume. And it's very easy to navigate on the flow. First name, last name, email, phone, address, attach the resume. That's all you need to do. It's super easy and makes it easy for that person to do. Here's an example of what it might look like to text a candidate throughout the process. We talked about how that can make it really fast. Don't make people sift through overly crowded inboxes or respond to you to schedule an interview. Make it easy via their phone and their email app. Instead, just let them text. It's so much easier, and we all work this way now. But especially younger generations, it's really going to be a target pool for talent moving forward. Another way to think about this, I just stayed at a hotel in Ohio for the last couple of days. I never had to talk to the front desk person. It's not that I don't like people, but I got a text before I checked in. I opened the app. I had my room key there. If we're enabling that level of guest experience, let's enable that level of candidate experience and make it that much easier and that much faster. And it also creates just that much better of an experience of someone who wants to work for you. Hey, they've tailored this to me. They've made this really easy on me. This is probably a place I want to spend some time talking to. And then, to summarize that, if you're going to enable better applications, easier texting, that will make it easier. And so let's summarize what this means for you and how you can get better housekeepers. You need to sell your roles like products. I've talked about this a lot, and I think career path in hospitality should be and is really attractive if you think about the market. So how do you document what product you have and make sure you're selling it? Embrace employee referrals. The people you have working there are already bought into that product. They want other people to be a part of it. Make sure you're embracing and enabling the opportunity to do that. Incorporate really good SEO best practices. How do you make sure that organic search and that you're showing up as all these people are looking to either get back into your industry or make an industry switch? And then use social media strategically. Make sure that you're out there showing what it's like to work at your property, that the career path is there, that it's people that they want to work with, that there's more than just pay that they should be looking for. And then finally, make the process easy. Make it mimic the guest experience that you provide. How do you make sure that it's easy to apply, that you're communicating with them appropriately? Make this all happen, make it work for them from that capacity. And so with that, I'll take some questions. It looks like I got one in here, so I'm going to open that one. How do you make work hours flexible in the service industry? Most people don't want to work weekends, but we can exist without people. We can exist without people to work. It isn't about being closed off to people who want to work Monday through Wednesday. It's that Monday through Wednesday just doesn't solve our problem. So how do we deal with work flexibility in the service industry? Great question. And Hireology works with a lot of industries that face this same problem. We work with car dealers who are open mainly Fridays and Saturdays, assisted living facilities where we're open all week. It is a hard thing. And flexible hours are really hard to manage to. And so what it is about, hey, where else can I be flexible? And how do you have that conversation? It doesn't necessarily mean just shifting Monday to Wednesday and then a shift from Wednesday to Sunday. Do they do weekend on, weekend off? Really taking a look at it and seeing what opportunities you have and what they can do. But I think it's about getting people in the door and then having that conversation. You are not alone in that, and that is really hard to overcome. But I think even if you wanted a housekeeper who could only do 1 day a week, finding that 1 day that works for them and making it work from that capacity. Karen, you asked if will you send out a recording of this? We will. So you'll be getting a recording of this as well as the deck after the fact. What kind of, Shirley asked a great question. What kind of hiring bonus structure do you find successful? Meaning, hey, I think I'm clarifying this right or restating this the right way. What kind of bonus should we offer to get people to take this job? We get asked this all the time, and to put it simply, you need to find what works for you. But I would always incentivize more than one thing. So yes, if you show up on day one and you're hired and make the offer, there's a bonus structure there to make sure that you don't have anyone ghost on training or not show up. But I would also incentivize to retention. So, hey, you made it through your training program and you're at your 90-day mark or your 180-day mark or whatever it is, here's that kind of bonus structure there. And then, hey, you've made it a year, there's an additional bonus. And so stair-stepping it versus offering one is what we really see work. And sometimes that doesn't always have to be cash. So I know of properties who stair-step, hey, you make it to your 90 days, you get 1 night as sister property free. Making sure that you do that. And what I'll say is whatever you decide to do, make sure you advertise it and make sure you talk about it and see how people react to it. So, hey, we've offered a stair step at 90 days, you're going to get $1,000. If you make it to a year, we'll give you a $5,000 bonus. Talk about that on your career site, post it in your social media. If you even feel comfortable, take a picture of the person who made it to their 3-year mark to do that. Hireology offers, kind of similar rewards or celebrations as well. When someone gets to their 1-year mark at Hireology, we lab coat them. We give them some sort of badge of honor and we put that on social media. Whatever you do to incentivize and create a good job environment and make people want to work for you, add it to your career site. Make sure you're marketing it. Make sure it's part of your plan to market this product and put it out there. Great question though, Shirley. Any other questions? Feel free to chat them in, put them in the Q&A. If not, it looks like that might be it. I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. I keep saying time is currency in this market, especially if you are on the front line of recruiting. So I appreciate you giving our time. Please let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to email Hireology. Always happy to help. Always happy to talk to anyone. Hopefully this helps, and we'll send you this deck and the recording after the fact. And good luck out there. I know it's a challenging market, so we're here to help. Thanks so much.